everyone, and welcome to this session of Straight from the Paws. I am here, Beverly, with a guest, Gail. Hi, Gail.
Hi,
we switched roles today.
I did. Unfortunately, our volunteer coordinator had a little bit of a spill, and she didn't want to come on with a black eye. So
I don't know why not. We could put makeup on it.
That's what I told her, but she said
we could have
no.
covered it all up with a little bit of makeup.
Yeah, so we wanted to talk a little bit about volunteering.
So you're going to be the volunteer coordinator for a little spot today.
Yeah, and I do help Joyce with doing the names and figuring out where we need people in the on the slots and all that. So I think I can figure this out.
So being a volunteer coordinator, that is Joyce, not you, it encompasses an awful lot of stuff. I use the word stuff. Not only do you get the phone calls at your own home, but you have to set up all of the appointments for the volunteers that are coming in and line them up with a trainer and then assign them a slot. And
right,
that's
so
where you come in.
So you're telling my job?
No, I'm giving it all to you.
Okay.
So hey, listen, I'm in charge.
Okay.
So we have to send it all to you now. So how does that happen?
So basically, she does receive a lot of phone calls, and people, it'd be nice if people called during normal hours, but some people call like late in the night or in the morning, but she does get all the phone calls. She has an orientation once a month, and she has an assistant, Kristen, who helps her coordinate. And then we also have what we call some veteran volunteers. We have a board member, Marlene, we have another board member, Diane, and we have a couple of other people, Tim and Sherry, that have been doing it for quite some time. Bonnie's another one. And so they're veteran volunteers. So what they do is they schedule in the times that they can come in and the people can come in, and they work at least 2 hours with them to get an idea. Why is that? Because the staff is not available to do it. That we're so inundated with animals. Just as a sidebar here. Last year, in 2024, we had over 1,600 animals come through our building.
Oh my God!
And our staff, we only
forget the numbers.
Yeah, and we're looking at maybe 8 people that work. Some work full time, some work part time, and then we have some, Ariana, our director, is a business, the business person, and people up front. So it's crazy. So that's why we ask these senior people that we really appreciate those people that come in and train the volunteers, and that's really a big help. That's a new part of the program.
We never used to do that.
No, it's a new part of the program which has been doing for about 1.5 years now, and it's worked out really well. Then what I do is just before they have the orientation, I go and I looked at the list and I go through it and see if people are still showing up. I go through their volunteer log. If they're coming, if they're not coming, I pass on the papers to Joyce, so she wants to call and see why they've stopped. There might be a reason why they stopped, or they just didn't like doing it anymore. Some people come to orientation, sign up, and don't even show up.
That happens.
That happens a lot. And what I do is I have slots, like 4 slots throughout the day, and so I try to say at least have 2 to 3 volunteers on each slot. Of course, that doesn't happen, but we try to fill it in as much as possible. Obviously, people that work or students want to work there on Saturday and Sunday. But I can tell you, as you know, any given Sunday or Saturday we go there might be 1 volunteer on during the shifts. But we try to fill it in. We try to do it as fair as possible. Some people stay on longer. We tell them that 20 hours
is the minimum.
Is 20 hours.
So if someone just wanted 5 hours, we say no.
No, because by that time that takes in training, 2 to 3 hours for training. Now you've only got 2 hours to volunteer. It's not worth it.
Not worth it.
It's not worth it for us. And then we also ask that they have to be 18 years of age. But there is a but.
Always a but.
If you have community service, you can be 16 or even maybe sometimes 15 if you're going to be 16 in the summer. So we have a lot of students that. Some of the schools are starting community service again, and we do take community service, and we take them from the churches and so on.
Can a volunteer just walk in and volunteer any day they want?
No, that's why we have a schedule. We have a schedule for the main reason that we want to know who's in the building at all time. As you well know, right now people that want to adopt, they have to make an appointment. And the same thing goes for people coming in. We want to know who's in the building at all times so we can monitor.
How can you tell a volunteer from the regular customers?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me that because of that wonderful yellow T-shirt that you selected the color many years ago when you were the volunteer coordinator.
Yes,
we
the
have
yellow
this bright
shirt.
Yellow shirt that everybody loves wearing. not. And so that's how we know the difference. And when they first come in, we ask them to wear name tags for at least a couple of days so that we know who they are in the building.
That helps.
It does help.
And that yellow shirt really helps.
I hate to admit, begrudgingly, I say yes, it does help.
Because I remember many years ago, we had customers walking around the building, we had the staff not in uniforms, and we had volunteers. We couldn't tell who was who.
Right.
And I believe a couple of times we lost an animal, got put into a pocket and walked out.
Mostly
of the building.
kittens. Some
Mostly
people
the
have
kittens.
Yeah, stolen.
So we had to come
kitten
up with
too.
a plan.
Yes.
And the plan, if I recall, was the staff needs to be in uniform, which we now have, right? And then the volunteers have to be visible.
Yes.
So that as they're walking around going into rooms, it's not a customer just walking into a room. That yellow shirt walking into a room is okay. And that's how we've controlled a lot of the craziness that would go on in the building, plus having appointments for customers now.
Right, and the other thing too that people have to understand, if you want to volunteer, it's not just to come in to play with the puppies and the kittens and maybe walk a dog. We're looking for people to help us maintain the building, which means sweeping the floors, washing the floors, dusting the woodwork, and then cleaning the windows. That type of stuff is really important. We don't let volunteers just go in and start working with the animals right at the beginning. There's a lot of work that has to be done in preparation before you get to that.
We don't have a place where they can go and take and play.
No, we don't. We do, and we had a walking program, which has fizzled since COVID. But we do train them how to walk. We just don't work on a regular collar. We use a martingale collar for the dogs, the larger dogs. So they're trained by the staff how to walk a dog, and we have the walking trail, and we have the agility trail pen outside that they can play in. That does happen, but you got to have a staff person that's been there for a long time, because remember, we've talked about this before, we have birds and cats, we have dogs, we have guinea pigs, you name it, roosters, we've had a pig, we've had a lot of different animals, reptiles, and people just can't come in and say, oh, what a cute little animal. And sometimes even when you have a sign that says do not touch, staff only, you can see that there's a yellow shirt in that room, and you can go in automatically and say, what are you doing in here?
That's right. That's why the yellow shirt is so important.
It does help. It does help.
Yes.
And people have to be aware of that, because our main concern is the safety of our animals. And that's important to us.
I really agree on all of that, too. The other thing is, how does somebody become a volunteer? I mean, what do you look for in a volunteer?
Well, we basically take anybody that's willing to come in and says they want to help the animals, and if
what do they do?
Well, again, basically at the beginning, it's mostly cleaning. We don't do our dishes like you do your dishes at home, unless you wash your dishes with bleach at home. That might be a problem. So we have to clean everything. We have to be very aware of communicable diseases within the building. That's why we have these little trays. Every time you step into a room, you have to step on the trays. So there's a lot of protocols in place that have to be taught to volunteers. That's why we say a minimum of 20 hours. It used to be 10, and that wasn't enough. It really wasn't enough. So we have a minimum of 20 hours. You come in, you get acclimated, and eventually, do I get to pet a cat? Sure, you might get to. You may even get to walk a small dog. But it's time and reassurance that you're going to do it correctly, and you're going to follow our rules. And that's a big thing. We have a lot of rules, a lot of protocols in place, and there's reasons for it. And
well, we have rooms like a quarantine room. You can't put a volunteer in a quarantine room.
Well, we actually have some rooms that have locks on them now. We have, a pad to get in, because people would just, even though the sign said do not enter, staff only, people would walk in. And so we decided to close off the quarantine room. B Kennel has a lock on it. We have a lot of different things going on. Recently, just as a sidebar, we have a panic button. When our staff goes into the kennels by themselves, they have a panic button that they have on. And if anything goes on in the building, they hit it, and the front desk knows, and they can also call the emergency if necessary.
Do volunteers go into that room?
No, that's why we tried it. B Kennel, they're not allowed to go in, because those are not our animals. They're animals that are brought in from the city of Fall River or the city of New Bedford and different strays. So no, we don't allow that. But the staff wears it, because if they're in there alone, if someone's not with them, they have the safety of that. So we're always looking for the safety of the animals, safety of our staff, and of course our volunteers and potential adopters.
What would happen if a volunteer got hurt volunteering?
Well,
What's the protocol for that?
Well, we have, first of all, you have to be with a staff person, and hopefully someone else saw what happened, and they have to fill it. We have an accident sheet that has to be filled out, and if the director, or we have shift supervisors there, they have to go in and they have to set up the protocol. We ask them, if it's a scratch or a bite, we'll take care of it medically in our medical room. If they want to go, if they want to go home, or if it looks like a bad bite, we'll tell them that they have to, let us know how they make out if they go to the hospital. Sometimes that's happened from a scratch bite. Someone's gotten a little infection and they call the next day. But we have all our information written down.
And when they fill out this volunteer application, they have to be honest. Isn't that true? I mean,
yes.
If you don't put down all the correct information and then something happens to you, because you didn't put the correct information. Like, for instance, you're allergic to rabbits, highly allergic to rabbits, but you don't put that down in the application. And then you have an attack of asthma or something because you walk into a room and we have a rabbit in there. And later on you say, but I'm allergic to rabbits. But did we know that?
No, and that's why we have a big contract right now, and they have to sign it. And if they're under 18, the parent has to also sign it. We ask you to be honest and tell us what your allergies are. I mean, I use myself as an example. I'm highly allergic to a lot of animals.
Correct.
and I take shots for it because this is my choice of what I choose to do. But I also always have my inhaler with me, and I don't go into the room that has the rabbits with the hay, because I'm allergic to the hay as well. I stay out of those rooms. And kitten rooms, I'm not really good with kittens or cats. So I know enough to stay away from. Do I still volunteer at the shelter? Yes, I do. And can I work there? Yes, I can. But I don't work directly with the animals. And some days, I know when I'm not feeling that great, I stay out of certain areas, or I just stay in the office and do my work there. So it is difficult, and we have had people in the past that, and again, they don't follow the protocol.
If that happens, do we fire volunteers?
Well, we ask them not to come back. Yes, we do.
So that has happened.
That has happened. We've asked them not to come back.
So following the rules is the most important thing.
It is important. Like anywhere else in society where you go, there are rules that you have to follow. And we also right now have, I forgot what we call it, but we have a code of conduct that we had to write, and we have that place in the building, and that goes also for the volunteers as well, to treat each other with respect, and to be kind to each other. And we went on, and you don't use vulgar language and so on and so forth. And that's another thing. If you're volunteering at the shelter, we expect you to be aware of your surroundings. There's people coming in to adopt. We expect you to handle yourself, not use vulgar language. We have a dress code for them as well. So there are certain things that we expect of the volunteers.
Can they play on their phones?
No, they can't play on their phones. They're allowed to keep their phone. It's not the best idea, but because if they have an emergency, they can, go to the front desk and get someone to call. But yes, they can. We don't like them to keep the phone, because if they drop the phone somewhere, they lose the phone, we have lockers that they can put them in until the end of the day. We tell them not to bring their purses in or anything like that.
Well, that helps. So, hey, I think we're almost out of time again, Gail.
I know.
These shows go by so fast. I'm amazed.
Well,
I think we talk a lot.
I think you and I have a lot to convey, because we know everything that's, what's happening, all the things over the years that have happened and what can change. You were volunteer coordinator for like 10 or 11 years.
Yes.
So you know what's happening.
So if you are interested in volunteering, you could call the shelter, 508-677-9154, and ask for the volunteer quarters phone number, and she'll set you up. You can come in for an orientation and join our little crew at Forever Paws.
They're usually the first Sunday of the month?
First Sunday of every month is the volunteer orientation day. And it lasts about an hour.
Mm-hmm. No, a couple of hours now.
A couple of hours now, because you have to buy shirts and everything. Well, again, thank you. We hope we've been very informative, and we hope everybody loves our little shows that we put on for the community. Thanks again.